Hi everyone, I wanted to review this video that I found where Bernie Sanders tries to convince those who are against the actions of this current US administration led by Joe Biden on regards to the Palestinian war. He tries to convince them, of course, to vote for Kamala. And I think that's better than many others, but he's still not good enough. And so let me tell you my thoughts why this is so.
I understand that there are millions of Americans who disagree with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris on the terrible war in Gaza. I am one of them.
I think that's well in saying that he disagree. That he's one of them. So he's one of the people who disagree, but he chooses the word disagree. I think the people who are extremely pissed at this administration for what they are doing are past the point of disagreement. And as you will hear, one of the major mistakes that he does in this video is the fact that he doesn't acknowledge the actual the actual feeling of people that disagree. Well, disagree again, wrong word. I don't know. I don't have the right word to use. That feel disgusted by the actions of this administration. And that's the thing. If somebody doesn't acknowledge your feelings, you are just hardly gonna listen to them because you're never gonna feel that they understand you. And when somebody doesn't understand you, then you often are just gonna reject whatever they say. It's not terrible. I do think that Bernie Sanders is one of the best politicians in the U.S., but he still comes short of saying something meaningful here. But let's continue to listen to what he says.
While Israel had a right to defend itself against the horrific Hamas terrorist attack of October 7th, which killed 1,200 innocent people and took 250 hostages, it did not have the right to wage an all-out war against the entire Palestinian people.
I think it's very meaningful the fact that he chooses to still use the argument of October 7. He's going to go on and talk about what he thinks they did wrong and what they didn't have the right to do and the atrocities or some of the atrocities they committed. However, he starts with the 8th of October. And I think this is bad because now it means something very clear in the minds of all of those who find this war horrific. Because this has been used so much as an excuse for everything that has happened before. And a little bit, even if he doesn't mean to, it's gonna feel a little bit that somehow he's still putting an accent on that. You will hear he talks about the hostages. Well, honestly, I think one of the mistakes of the movement pro-Palestinian has been not to focus on the hostages. They're right. Compared to the numbers of Palestinian people, innocent Palestinian people dying, they are meaningless. So why talk about that if you really disagree with the action of the government? While focus on October 7 in a way. I understand why he does it, but I think that does resonate well with the people he actually wants to reach out to. Let's keep listening.
It did not have the right to kill 42,000 Palestinians, 2/3 of whom were children, women, and the elderly, or injure over 100,000 people in Gaza. It did not have the right to destroy Gaza's infrastructure, housing, and healthcare system. It did not have the right to bomb every one of Gaza's 12 universities. It did not have the right to block humanitarian aid, causing massive malnutrition in children and, in fact, starvation. And that is why I am doing everything I can to block U.S. military aid and offensive weapons sales to the right-wing extremist Netanyahu government in Israel.
Okay, so indeed he goes on and talks about the thing Israel didn't have the right to do, but the thing about the choice of words, his choice of words. So the word having the right to do something, what does it mean? It means that you didn't have the right. You couldn't have just done that thing without any consequences. But it doesn't tell you there are actually going to be any consequences. So you don't have the right to cross the street with a red light, but if you do, probably nothing's going to happen. So you get a little fine at most and that's it. No? But that's the thing. Not having the right to do something doesn't mean that something is wrong. Doesn't mean that you are committing a genocide. Doesn't mean you're committing a war crime. It just means He didn't have the right to do it. So whoopsie.
And I know that many of you share those feelings. And some of you are saying, how can I vote for Kamala Harris if she is supporting this terrible war? And that is a very fair question. And let me give you my best answer. And that is that even on this issue, Donald Trump and his right-wing friends are worse. In the Senate, in Congress, the Republicans have worked overtime to block humanitarian aid to the starving.
Okay, I just cut a little bit short here. But he starts I think I was very good. I mean, how can I do that? He tried to pose a question that people are asking, but he doesn't actually give any satisfying answer. His answer is not, we are going to do something, something's going to change, look at these, are some signs that some change is going to happen. His answer is, well, the other ones are going to be worse than we have done. And I think this is just not very powerful as a message if the only excuse you have for your lack of action is the fact that the other ones are going to be much worse. So I do believe that. I do believe that Trump is going to be much worse for Palestine, or honestly much worse for anybody who are not his super rich friends. But that's not a meaningful, satisfying answer to this question. And I understand it's hard for him to give a meaningful, satisfying answer to these questions. But if you don't give that, then people are not going to like it and they're not going to vote for you. And you haven't even acknowledged the depth of the discontent that currently people have, the depth of the disillusion that people are currently experiencing with this government and their actions on this regard. So this is just not a satisfying answer. And then he goes on saying how Trump
Children
are
in
going to
Gaza.
be much worse.
The president and vice president both support getting as much humanitarian aid into Gaza as soon as possible. Trump has said,
and this is something that I don't understand. So he said, okay, the president have supported, but what does it mean? Again, like, how is this a meaningful action? Nobody has seen, tons of aids come inside. They build this pier thingy that disappear after a while because, it just was a dumb idea to start with. So if you bring that, you are trying to say, yeah, well, look, they did something, but it's kind of bullshit. So that only, again, like my last video, that's a form of gaslighting. He's gaslighting people into trying to show them that their position is wrong, that their idea that this government is just actually very much complicit in this war is wrong. And people are extremely disappointed and they do not respond well to this. So I think he fails at really targeting the root cause of people's he really fails at targeting the root cause of people's miscontent. He really fails at acknowledging it, and he fails at proposing anything meaningful on how this is going to change. So I think one of the things that the Trump has on his favors is very clear. People seek clarity. I think some people know that Trump is just not trustworthy. They've given up all the illusion of trust. They're just going to listen to him. He's going to say they're just going to believe it because he's not trustworthy. He's just going to say whatever. He doesn't even make sense most of the time. But if you say you make sense and you don't finally act on it and you don't make sense to them, then you are confusing them. Then you're in a contradiction. No, overpromise and underdeliver. This is what the Democrats done. And this only works for Elon Trump. So Elon Trump, that's an interesting thought. For Elon Musk, but for most people, when you overpromise and underdeliver, that produces disappointment in your other party, in whoever is listening to you. While Trump doesn't really, I don't know what he promises, but no, he doesn't really make sense. So delivering, I don't think is much of an issue. As long as he keep people entertained, and that's the thing. Trump is entertaining, while Kamala is not so well. But that's not much of a point of view. So let's go.
Netanyahu is doing a good job and has said Biden is holding him back. He has suggested that the Gaza Strip would make excellent beachfront property for development. And it is no wonder Netanyahu prefers to have Donald Trump in office. But even more importantly, and this I promise you, after Kamala wins, we will together do everything that we can to change U.S. policy toward Netanyahu. An immediate ceasefire, the return of all hostages, a surge of massive humanitarian aid, the stopping of settler attacks on the West Bank, and the rebuilding of Gaza for the Palestinian people.
Okay, and I think the question that comes right to my mind is how. So somebody once said, a yes is nothing within a how. They're telling you, yes, we're going to do what you want, but how? I think that without the primaries, this Kamala government feels natural, very much like a continuation of the previous government. And he hasn't really addressed, in my opinion, any of these concerns in a way that seems meaningfully different. So, yeah, how? That's, again, another form of gaslighting. I mean, I don't think he's lying. I do like to believe what Bernie says. I think I like who he is. I mean, I don't shy from my political opinions. But how? How is he going to do? How can you promise this? How can you say that it's going to happen? Again, I think the only real valid conclusion he has here is that they're going to be less crappy than the opposition. I think that's the conclusion. And that's what I think is true, but it's deeply unsatisfying. I don't think it resonates well with people. He hasn't acknowledged the feeling of people. He hasn't admitted, at the very least, how crappy the Democrats have been in these regards. And so that's why I don't think this is an impactful message, and he could have done a lot better. Anyway, thanks for, if you got all the way to here, thanks for listening, and see you another time. Ciao.